How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to your favorite aviation channel, and today we've got the February 2024 update for Chicago O'Hare Terminal 5. This update is based around 1 p.m., but it has a bit of a unique scenario. So last month when I was flying into O'Hare on January 14th, it was a horrendously cold day, like -6 Fahrenheit, which is like minus 21 degrees Celsius. It was just a mess of a day to fly from Chicago, especially internationally, as almost everything was delayed. So that's kind of what's being replicated in this update. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, I'll quickly show some additions I've made to the airport since the last update. Right here you can see I added some green construction paper that's meant to serve as grass by the apron and also the runway 22 left threshold. Still got some work to do with some more markings and stuff to add, so that's just something that I hope to finish by the next update. Moving on, I also added the taxiway hold short and the movement area markings wherever that I had to. Just thought I'd make my life a little bit easier and print these out online instead of actually hand drawing them. As you can see, there's a lot of open space on either side, so again, I'll probably have to finish filling those in by the next update as well. Lastly, moving to the Delta side of T5, I still have some more roads to add that I didn't do yet, and actually not just here, in other parts of the terminal apron as well. So again, hopefully I'll finish those by next time. Starting off with the planes now, we have first this United 777-200 running about 2 hours late, heading to Orlando as flight 2340. Behind that is a United 737-900ER off to Newark as flight 1847. Here's an American 787-9 off to Dallas-Fort Worth as flight 241. This is currently the only American domestic wide-body flight that we have out of Chicago. It comes in from DFW and then it goes right back to DFW. Next up, we've got the Spirit A320neo awaiting departure to San Juan, Puerto Rico as flight 129. Next is the first new model of the update, the gorgeous United Airbus A321neo operating a delayed flight 321 out to Phoenix, Arizona. United's been gradually increasing its neo flights out of Chicago, so aside from Phoenix, I believe we get these also to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, with some other routes being added later on. Next is a United A319 off to Albany, New York as flight 1113. We've got behind that a 737 MAX 8 going to Sarasota, Florida as flight 2632. American Eagle Embraer 170 in the retro livery headed off to Sioux Falls, South Dakota as flight 3793. We've got the Air Canada Airbus A220-300 waiting in line for its return to Toronto as flight 502. And lastly is the Air Wisconsin retro livery CRJ200 operating for American Eagle, heading out to Columbus, Ohio as flight 6163. Alright, so moving on to the terminal now. Starting here at M3 is a Delta Connection E175 operating a delayed service to New York LaGuardia as flight 4131. Next at M4 is the CRJ900 operating a round-robin service from and to Detroit as flight 3866. At M7, we have a 717-200 going to Detroit as well, but this one is delayed, flight number 432. Next at M8, we've got the second new model of the updated Delta A320 off to Minneapolis as flight 2337. Glad to finally have the A320. I've been needing this model for quite a while now. Moving over to M10 is an A220-300 that came in from Salt Lake City as flight 2537, and it'll head off to Seattle as flight 2841. And then next to that at M11 is the 757-200 doing a round robin from and to Atlanta or Citrus Aviation's airport as flight 1147. Alright, so quickly before moving on, I just wanted to mention something that was brought up in the comments of last month's update. Big thanks to whoever told me this. I can't remember the name at the moment, but apparently the big barn thing that I've had here between M8 and M10 is completely gone now, and it's been replaced with gate M9. So for the time being, I have this random jetway sitting here to replicate M9, but I hope to fully add the markings and such for this gate by the next update. Moving to M15, we have the Japan Airlines 777-300ER being repositioned to Terminal 3 ahead of its departure back to Tokyo Haneda as Flight 9, and it arrived here about 2 hours earlier as Flight 10. So yes, the JAL 777 is back for the time being in Chicago, which I'm very happy about because if you weren't aware, these will gradually get retired in the coming years as Japan Airlines gets more A350-1000s. But for now, at least I get the chance to showcase this model. It's actually a custom. I made this about 3 years ago. Next at M16 is the competition, but the better Japanese airline according to the ratings. ANA 777-300ER that arrived from Haneda in the morning as Flight 112, but is facing some delays ahead of being repositioned to Terminal 1, where it would depart to Narita as Flight 11. So back on January 14th, when I flew into O'Hare, both ANA flights were on the ground at the same time, which almost never happens because Flight 11 leaves at 10:30 a.m. on a normal day, and the inbound flight from Narita, Flight 12, lands around 2 p.m. So this picture was taken around 3:50 p.m. after I had landed. You can see Flight 12 is supposed to be Flight 12 in the background of this picture, when in reality it shouldn't be there at this time. It was supposed to have been at Terminal 1, getting ready to push back on a normal day. So this plane would eventually get pushed back and operate Flight 111 to Haneda 6 hours late that night. However, Flight 11, if its 7-hour delay on that particular day wasn't bad enough, it ended up hitting a Delta 717 and was canceled that day. Here at M19, we have the Etihad Airways Airbus A350-1000 heading back to Abu Dhabi about an hour late as Flight 150. Next is the Air India 777-300ER getting prepared for its return to Delhi as Flight 126. Next to that is another new model making its debut here, the Turkish Airlines Airbus A350-900, operating Flight 186 back to Istanbul about 2 hours late. Next to that is another new model, the Volaris A321neo in the new livery, that just came in from Leon as Flight 290 and will head out to Morelia as Flight 297. Moving on is the United 787-10 that's just arrived from Brussels as Flight 973. At M25 is a Frontier A321 heading to Cancun as Flight 44. So actually some news about Frontier. They're once again going to start a massive number of routes from O'Hare this spring. You can see the full list right here. We're definitely going to have to see how Terminal 5 deals with all these extra Frontier flights, but it's great news nonetheless. At M26, we have a Southwest 737-700 here from Nashville as Flight 1177, going off to Dallas Love Field as Flight 1731. Next door at M27 is the MAX 8 here from Orlando as Flight 3567, going off to Denver now as Flight 1534. At M29 is the Copa Airlines 737-800 fresh in from Panama City as Flight 228. Taxiing out to runway 28 right for a delayed departure is Korean Air Flight 38, operated by this 777-300ER. Pushing back from M32 is another new model, the Southwest 737 MAX 8 going to Orlando as Flight 3669 and came in from Love Field as Flight 152. So notable thing about this model, and also the reason why I bought it, is that this is November 8706 Whiskey, the plane I flew in September from O'Hare to Albany via Baltimore. At M34 is a 3-hour or so late Ethiopian 787-9 heading back to Addis Ababa as Flight 575. They actually weren't super late on January 14th, but I just put them in, just because. At M35, we have the United A320 in the Stars and Bars retro livery that's just come in from Mexico City as Flight 1594. And the next to that is the Aeromexico 737 MAX 8 that's also arrived from Mexico City. This is Flight 686. And the last aircraft is the Contour Embraer 145 at stand 104 Bravo, just came in from Kirksville, Missouri as Flight 3073. So sometimes Contour and Denver Air Connection, they will be assigned one of these remote gates, but apparently they've secured more gate space at Terminal 3, concourses G and L, which is good for them. It just means that I probably won't be able to put them out here as much in future updates, so just wanted to make that clear. Alright, so before concluding the update, I just thought I'd give you some more stories about January 14th and O'Hare, because like I said, it was an absolute mess. This United 777 that you see here, if you haven't seen my American A319 trip report from a couple weeks back, this thing was 7 hours late going out to Denver, and funny enough, Star Alliance man himself was on board this flight, so huge shout out to him. Here's a shot that I got of the international terminal. Most of those flights were about 2 hours late, except that Lufthansa A340 that ended up being canceled and departing 2 days later. A lot of the international arrivals ended up having to wait a really long time for gates because of rolling delays from earlier in the day. So this Qatar 777 and Swiss A330, they sat on the taxiway for up to 3 hours after landing. Here they are around 3:50 p.m. and then almost 2 hours later, they're still there in the same spot because just the gates, there were no gates at Terminal 5. Everything was just so backed up. My friend I had two friends actually, they flew internationally into O'Hare that night. One of them was on Lufthansa. He came in from Munich originally from Dubai, but he was on the same plane from Dubai to Munich and then Munich to Chicago. So once they landed in Chicago, he was on board that plane for like 4 hours extra after landing, which is crazy. That particular aircraft ended up departing back to Munich just short of 5 hours late that night. So if you're wondering, the reason for all these delays like throughout the day, from what I heard, is that because of all these sub-zero temperatures, a lot of the doors on the planes were like frozen shut, a bunch of the cargo doors. I'm not too sure about the actual exit doors for the passengers, but the cargo hold doors on the underbelly of the aircraft, from what I heard, they were frozen shut because it was literally like -6, -7 degrees Fahrenheit out there. So that took a while. Every single time, like every single plane that was coming in, the cargo hold doors, from at least from what I heard, they were just frozen shut. They couldn't get them open as quickly as they would be on a normal day, right? So just that was, I guess, just part of the reason why all these planes were delayed. I'm sure there were other factors as well, but that was one of the main reasons that I've heard, especially for all the international flights that day. But there we go. It was an insane day for O'Hare, and of course, much of the Midwest, they all got hit with this insane winter storm at that time. But it's times like this that really make you feel all the more appreciative and thankful for everyone who works the ins and outs of the aviation industry. So that concludes this update. Thank you all very much for watching till the end, and stay tuned for more exciting videos coming out very, very soon. Until next time, take care everybody, and I will see you next time.